Investors and crypto insiders, what I'm about to reveal is being ignored by mainstream media, yet it could reshape the trajectory of digital assets entirely. Elon Musk, artificial intelligence, and XRP are suddenly intersecting in a way that's turning heads across financial institutions, tech circles, and crypto corridors alike. This changes everything because when a figure like Musk signals interest directly or indirectly, it triggers a ripple effect that no algorithm or headline can fully capture. WTF is happening behind the scenes that the public isn't seeing? Why are institutions like BlackRock, JP Morgan, and even the IMF watching these developments quietly, analyzing XRP's role in AI-driven financial infrastructure? Prepare for shock because the convergence of AI, strategic adoption, and institutional positioning around XRP is forming a perfect storm that could define the next decade of digital finance. Before we dive deeper, act now. Hit like, subscribe, and enable notifications because this analysis is being delivered at a level that mainstream platforms will not amplify. XRP is no longer just a digital token. It's an infrastructure asset quietly being considered for AI-powered settlement systems, cross-border liquidity, and institutional integration. What the public sees as speculation is actually a structural setup where timing, authority, and operational readiness converge. Ask yourself, if XRP were irrelevant, would Elon Musk even mention it in the context of AI? Would banks, national regulators, and global financial authorities continue to monitor it closely? Timing is everything, and the next moves are already in motion behind closed doors, far from charts and social media chatter. Now let's break down the data, authority, and structural signals that make this intersection of Elon Musk, AI, and XRP so extraordinary, because this is where speculation ends and systemic insight begins. XRP has repeatedly demonstrated operational readiness through live RippleNet corridors, ODL adoption, and partnerships with major financial institutions, proving that it can handle high-volume, compliant transactions at scale. Regulatory clarity has been gradually improving, with SEC developments reducing legal uncertainty, and this aligns perfectly with growing interest in AI-driven financial solutions. Consider the authority involved, Musk's influence on AI discourse, BlackRock's exploration of digital assets, and the IMF's monitoring of tokenized liquidity frameworks all point toward a structural relevance for XRP that far exceeds retail speculation. Ask yourself, why would Elon Musk mention XRP in the context of AI if it were irrelevant? Why are banks and regulators still analyzing Ripple's infrastructure quietly while mainstream media ignores it? The signals are clear, and the strategic window to position is narrowing rapidly. Operational adoption is just as critical as institutional and authoritative endorsement. RippleNet continues expanding across Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, embedding XRP into real-world liquidity corridors and stress testing it at scale. AI-powered transaction systems, high-frequency settlement models, and algorithmic liquidity management all rely on assets that are fast, neutral, and compliant, and XRP is uniquely positioned to fulfill that role. Transaction volume data, corridor expansion, and institutional trial adoption all point to an inevitable adoption curve that will accelerate once AI integration begins to drive operational demand. Meanwhile, retail investors remain fixated on short-term price volatility, oblivious to the underlying structural and institutional momentum quietly building in the background. XRP is moving from a perceived speculative asset to a systemically essential infrastructure component, and those who recognize these signals now will gain a massive asymmetric advantage. Now we enter the decisive phase where catalysts and FUD collide because every major asymmetric opportunity passes through a period where noise drowns out the signal and uninformed investors are actively misled. The catalyst here is subtle yet monumental. AI integration, institutional alignment, and operational adoption are converging simultaneously, with XRP positioned squarely at the epicenter. Imagine AI-driven payment and settlement systems leveraging XRP's speed and compliance, while institutions quietly expand usage corridors and regulators provide incremental clarity. Once these AI-enabled operational models scale and adoption ramps, the market response will not be gradual. It will be sudden, violent, and nearly impossible to ignore. This is a silent catalyst. Flipping switches behind closed doors, only noticed once effects are irreversible. Prepare for shock because this is exactly how systemic financial shifts unfold. Yet most investors remain distracted by social media noise and short-term charts. And now, the FUD defense, because doubt will arrive in waves. Critics will scream that XRP is centralized, that AI integration is speculative, that regulators will stifle adoption, and that nothing is happening because price action remains quiet. That is exactly what was said about Bitcoin before ETFs, about Amazon before cloud dominance, and about AI before it became infrastructure. Institutions do not rely on headlines. They operate quietly, efficiently, and under regulatory scrutiny. XRP has been stress tested across live corridors, compliance is baked in, and operational risk is mitigated. Centralization arguments collapse under oversight, and transparency criticisms vanish when transparency is designed as a feature, not a flaw. Ask yourself, why is Musk even commenting on XRP in the context of AI? Why are banks, national regulators, and global authorities still monitoring Ripple's developments? WTF, do people expect convergence to look like? Flashy headlines and fireworks? The reality is quieter, far more insidious, and far more profitable for those positioned early. Now we reach the critical phase, the price justification and the final warning, because this is where structural reality collides with market mechanics and the implications become unavoidable. XRP is not being priced like a speculative altcoin. It is being positioned as systemic infrastructure capable of powering AI-driven settlement, cross-border liquidity, and institutional scale operations. Consider the magnitude: trillions in daily cross-border transactions, algorithmic liquidity flows, and AI-enhanced operational models, all constrained by slow legacy rails. XRP is designed as a neutral, high-speed bridge capable of executing these flows efficiently and compliantly. BlackRock, JP Morgan, and other institutional giants do not deploy capital into uncertainty, and Ripple's survival through regulatory scrutiny combined with operational proof points positions XRP as one of the few assets ready to meet this emerging demand. $100 is not fantasy. It is the structural entry point for informed players before adoption, AI integration, and corridor expansion trigger a massive revaluation. Timing is everything. XRP exists in a narrow window where AI integration, regulatory clarity, and operational readiness converge. Hesitation, disbelief, or delay could mean missing a generational asymmetric opportunity. The mainstream media will continue to ignore or dismiss this story because they cannot simplify a structural institutional narrative into headlines. Ripple is embedding quietly into real-world systems. AI applications are being considered for liquidity management, and regulatory developments remove lingering uncertainty that once kept cautious players on the sidelines. When this convergence manifests fully, price will not move gradually. It will react violently to adoption, AI deployment, and institutional demand. Those who dismiss XRP now will later ask themselves how they missed the structural signals, and the answer will be painfully clear. You ignored authority, infrastructure, and timing. This is your final warning. The window for strategic positioning is closing. XRP's next phase is about unavoidable systemic relevance, and even subtle AI and institutional alignment magnifies the stakes. You are either strategically positioned to benefit from this convergence, or you are watching from the sidelines as others capture generational gains. Timing, authority, and operational readiness are all here, and the next chapter for XRP is already underway. In conclusion, what we are witnessing is far beyond ordinary speculation. It is a structural, institutional, and technological convergence quietly unfolding behind the scenes. XRP is no longer just a digital token. It is emerging as a systemic bridge for AI-driven financial operations, cross-border liquidity, and institutional adoption. Elon Musk's commentary, combined with growing interest from BlackRock, national regulators, and other global financial authorities, signals a level of relevance and potential that mainstream media cannot and will not capture. This changes everything because the market is on the cusp of a silent but monumental shift, where operational readiness, regulatory clarity, and AI integration converge into unstoppable momentum. This is your moment to act decisively. XRP's corridors are live, institutional interest is accelerating, and regulatory risk is diminishing. Those who understand the structural setup and position accordingly will gain a generational advantage, while those who hesitate will watch from the sidelines as this quietly powerful asset moves towards systemic relevance. Timing is everything. Clarity is power, and XRP's next chapter is already in motion. Position wisely, act decisively, and do not let this opportunity slip through your fingers.